Hello everyone, welcome to this video. In this video, we shall relate the Riemann-Stieltjes integral with Riemann integral in a different way. Right? So here we shall show that a bounded real valued function will be Riemann-Stieltjes integrable on some closed interval a comma b if and only if f into alpha dash, where alpha dash is the derivative of alpha. So when you differentiate the function, monotonically increasing function alpha, so you'll get the first order derivative alpha dash. Right? So f into alpha dash function is Riemann integrable on closed interval a comma b. So we shall prove this if and only if condition that f is Riemann-Stieltjes integrable if and only if f into alpha dash is Riemann integrable. And in this case, Riemann-Stieltjes integral of f is equal to the Riemann-Stieltjes integral of f into alpha dash. So this is what we will prove here, right? We should start with an epsilon, let epsilon greater than 0 be given. Okay, so first of all, we shall recall the Riemann criterion for integrability. Riemann criterion for integrability. Right? So it says that any bounded real valued function f along with the monotonically increasing function alpha is Riemann-Stieltjes integrable on some closed interval a comma b if and only if for any positive epsilon there exists a partition, P of the closed interval a comma b such that UPF alpha minus LPF alpha can be made less than epsilon. So this is what the Riemann criterion for integrability gives. So in this Riemann criterion for integrability, alpha is any monotonically increasing function. So take it to be the identity function. So take alpha of x to be x for all x varying over a comma b. Then the Riemann criterion can be rewritten as, so whenever the monotonically increasing function alpha coincides with the identity function, the Riemann-Stieltjes integral coincides with Riemann integral, we have seen. Then f will be Riemann integrable on closed interval a comma b if and only if for every epsilon, for any epsilon positive, there exists a partition P of closed interval a comma b such that so UPF alpha, that is upper Riemann-Stieltjes sum of f. So as we have taken alpha to be identity function, UPF alpha coincides with UPF, that is Riemann sum, upper Riemann sum minus lower Riemann sum can be made less than epsilon. So Riemann criterion holds in general for any monotonically increasing function alpha along with the real valued bounded function f. So in place of alpha, take the identity function. So when you take alpha to be the identity function, Riemann-Stieltjes integral coincides with Riemann integral, and upper Riemann-Stieltjes and lower Riemann-Stieltjes sums coincide with upper Riemann sum and the lower Riemann sum.
Recording in progress.
Now, since alpha dash is Riemann integrable on closed interval a comma b by the hypothesis, for the epsilon positive there exists a partition, say P star of closed interval a comma b, such that u p star alpha dash minus l p star alpha dash can be made less than epsilon. But then by generalized Riemann criterion for integrability, so this condition not only holds for the partition P star, but for all refinements of P star. So that I will note that, but by generalized Riemann criterion for integrability, so the condition u p alpha dash minus l p alpha dash can be made less than epsilon for all refinements P of P star. Right? So this condition holds for any refinement of P star. Right? Okay. Let P equals x naught, x1, x2, so on xn be any refinement of the partition P star of closed interval a comma b. So let P be any refinement of the partition P star of closed interval a comma b. So P is a refinement, means P also a partition of closed interval a comma b. So now the closed interval a comma b is partition. So the points are x0, x1, x2, so on, xn minus 1, xn. Right? Now observe that these partition points actually divide the closed interval a comma b into subintervals. Now they have given, now there are three functions actually, f, alpha dash, f into alpha dash. So f is given to be already bounded. Alpha dash is Riemann integrable on closed interval a comma b, so it is also has to be bounded, and f into alpha dash. So product of two bounded functions is again bounded. So f into alpha dash is also bounded. So all these three functions are bounded on this closed interval a comma b, so that they are bounded on each of the subinterval. So as these functions are bounded on each subinterval, so they will have infimum and supremum. So we shall take those. Let mi be the infimum of all f of x values as x varies over the subinterval xi minus 1 xi. Capital MIB supremum of all f of x as x varies over the closed interval xi minus 1 xi. Similarly, mi dash be infimum of the function alpha dash of x as x varies over the function closed interval xi minus 1 x. Similarly, capital Mi dash be supremum of alpha dash of x as x varies over the subinterval xi minus 1 xi. And Mi double dash be infimum of f into alpha dash of x as x varies over any ith subinterval, and capital Mi double dash be supremum of all f into alpha dash of x as x varies over any subinterval xi minus 1 xi. So I have defined this for all i's. So there are n subintervals on each subinterval. So these functions f, alpha dash, and f into alpha dash have infimum and supremum, and they have called as mi, capital mi dash, capital Mi dash, mi double dash, and capital Mi dash respectively. So next, recall mean value theorem. Recall mean value theorem with respect to differentiation. So it is stated as if f is real continuous, f is real continuous function on some closed interval a comma b, which is differentiable in open interval a comma b, then there is a point x belonging to open interval a comma b at which we have f of b minus f of a is equal to b minus a into f dash of x. So this is the mean value theorem with respect to differentiation. And now they have given that alpha is a monotonically increasing function on closed interval a comma b such that alpha dash is the Riemann integrable on closed interval a comma b. So that means that alpha dash exists. That is derivative of alpha exists. So alpha is a differentiable function and its derivative exists on the whole closed interval a comma b. So as it is a differentiable function, first of all it is continuous. So it is continuous on the closed interval a comma b and it is differentiable on the closed interval a comma b. So now closed interval a comma b is divided into subintervals. So on each subinterval also the same result holds. That is alpha is continuous on any subinterval xi minus 1 xi. Alpha is differentiable on each subinterval closed interval xi minus 1 xi. So we shall apply the mean value theorem. So for each subinterval there exists a point such that this condition holds, right? For each I from 1 to n, since alpha is continuous on each subinterval xi minus 1 xi, which is differentiable on xi minus 1 xi. By mean value theorem, there exists a point ti belonging to xi minus 1 xi such that alpha of xi minus 1 is equal to xi minus 1 into alpha dash of ti. So that is nothing but alpha of xi minus 1 is what? It is delta alpha I. Xi minus 1 is nothing but length of the interval xi minus 1 xi, which is denoted by delta xi, into alpha dash of Ti. Right? This is true for each I. Right? Now since f is a bounded function, so modulus of f of x can be made less than or equal to m for some real m. So that its supremum exists, so we shall take it as m. Let m be the supremum of all modulus of f of x as x varies over the closed interval a comma b. And this exists since f is bounded on closed interval a comma, right? Okay. Now for any point si in the ith subinterval xi minus 1 xi, where I is also varying. So here the subinterval is also not fixed, and any point of that subinterval is also not fixed. So both are varying. So for any such points, consider modulus of summation f of si into delta alpha I running from 1 to n minus summation f of si into alpha dash of si into delta xi, I running from 1 to n. So this is the crucial step in this theorem, right? So based on this summation only, the next all steps will depend. So now this is equal to summation f of si. So delta alpha I. In this case, delta alpha I is what? So okay, call this as equation 1. So by equation 1, delta alpha I is delta xi, or I'll interchange the order. So it is alpha dash of ti into delta xi minus, so the second summation as it is, alpha dash of si delta xi, I running from 1 to n. Now observe that both summations are running on the same index. So we can combine the summations. So I running from 1 to n. So this term minus this term. But both have once again some common things here. So alpha dash of ti here, alpha dash of si here. So into the common things are f of si into delta xi. I running from 1 to n once again. Just we have combined both the summations and taken the common. Now it is modulus of the summation, so it will be less than or equal to sum of the moduli. Summation alpha dash of ti minus alpha dash of si into modulus of f of si into delta xi. So no need to apply modulus for delta xi because delta xi's are non-negative. So they are xi minus n, which are non-negative. So I running from 1 to n. Now all f of x values have supremum m. So if I use that, so by 2, so these numbers are less than or equal to m. So and rest all the things as it is. So modulus of alpha dash of ti minus alpha dash of si into m into delta xi. So here I'm using 2. This is by 2. So where m is the supremum of all f of x values. Okay, so now we can take m outside. So m into summation alpha dash of ti minus alpha dash of si into delta xi, I running from 1 to n. Right? So call this as some equation 3. Okay. So we have for any 2 points Si and Ti in the ith subinterval xi minus 1 xi. So alpha dash of Si, alpha dash of Ti. So what they will be? So they will be in the range Mi dash, capital Mi dash. This is because, so on the ith subinterval, Mi dash and capital Mi dash are the infimum and supremum of alpha dash values. So alpha dash of Si and alpha dash of Ti will be greater than or equal to Mi dash and less than or equal to capital Mi dash. So here, so we can use this idea. Here we are using this one. So call it as some star. So by star, this is by star, right? So now as these two values lie in between Mi dash and capital Mi dash, so difference of their absolute value will be less than or equal to Mi dash minus small mi dash. So take or multiply delta xi on both sides. So modulus of alpha dash of Ti minus alpha dash of Si into delta xi will be less than or equal to Mi dash minus Mi dash into delta xi. So as delta xi is a non-negative number, so on multiplying on both sides, so the inequality remains the same. So for all I, we have this, right? So here I is arbitrary. So for all I we have. So take the summation on both sides. So summation of all the numbers alpha dash of Ti minus alpha dash of Si into delta Xi, I running from 1 to n, can be made less than or equal to summation capital Mi dash minus small mi dash into delta Xi, I running from 1 to n. Now the right hand side summation can be splitted into capital Mi dash into delta Xi, one summation, the other is small mi dash into delta X. So what is this? Capital Mi dash is supremum of alpha dash. So the summation will be nothing but upper Riemann sum of alpha dash minus this will be lower Riemann sum of alpha dash. But we have made this less than epsilon. So that is summation modulus of alpha dash of Ti minus alpha dash of Si into delta Xi, I running from 1 to n. So can be made less than epsilon because we started. So this summation is less than or equal to this one, which is in turn less than epsilon. So this is what we get. So now use this in the equation 3. So by 3, therefore, by 3, so we started with the term summation f of Si delta alpha I running from 1 to n minus summation f of Si alpha dash of Si into delta Xi, I running from 1 to n. So we showed that this is less than or equal to m into summation modulus of alpha dash of Ti minus alpha dash of Si into delta Xi, I running from 1 to n, but which we made, so this term we made less than epsilon. So this is less than m into epsilon. That is, we showed that modulus of f of Si into delta alpha I running from 1 to n minus summation f of Si alpha dash of Si delta xi, I running from 1 to n. So we made this is less than m epsilon. So absolute value is less than m epsilon means, so it means the value inside the modulus lies in between minus m epsilon and plus m epsilon. That is summation f of si delta alpha I running from 1 to n minus summation f of si alpha dash of si into delta xi I running from 1 to n. So this value lies in between minus epsilon and plus epsilon. So just here I'm using that. So modulus of x is less than epsilon implies, so x lies in between minus epsilon and plus epsilon, where epsilon has to be positive, strictly positive, right? Okay. So now there are two inequalities here. So we shall take one by one. So call this as 4. So 4. Okay. So by 4 we have. So I'll consider one of the inequality, that is summation f of si delta alpha I running from 1 to n minus summation f of si alpha dash of si into delta xi I running from 1 to n is less than m epsilon. So take this negative term to the right hand side. So this implies summation f of si delta alpha I running from 1 to n is less than summation f of si alpha dash of si delta xi I running from 1 to n plus m epsilon. So where you can just notice that si is actually varying over the ith subinterval xi minus 1 xi. So here also we can, here also just you can quote it, where si varies over the ith subinterval where si varies over the ith subinterval xi minus 1 xi. Okay, so now just we should simplify this. Now the right hand side term is equal to summation. So f of si into delta, sorry, f of si into alpha dash of si is there. So it can be written as f into alpha dash of si into delta xi I running from 1 to n, where si is varying over the ith subinterval xi minus 1 xi. But we have taken supremum of all f into alpha dash of x as x varies over the ith interval as what? We have taken it to be mi double dash. So it is this mi double dash is a supremum, means it will be greater than or equal to all these values as x varies over this subinterval. So here si varies over this subinterval. So all these values will be less than or equal to mi double dash into delta xi as it is. Summation I running from 1 to n. So here plus m epsilon. So plus m epsilon. Now what is this? Mi double dash is the supremum of f into alpha dash of x. So the sum will be nothing but, it will be nothing but upper Riemann sum of the function f into alpha dash with respect to the partition P plus m epsilon. So that is on the right hand side what we have, summation f of si delta alpha I, right? Delta alpha I running from 1 to n. So it is made strictly less than, right? Strictly less than u p f into alpha dash plus m epsilon, where si varies over all the points for the closed interval xi minus 1 xi. So for any si in this interval, so this term is less than this term, or in other words I can say, so this number forms an upper bound for all such numbers, right? So it forms an upper bound for all such numbers. So if I consider it's a supremum will be least upper bound and it is any upper bound. So supremum will be always less than or equal to this. So that is I'll write U P F alpha dash plus m into epsilon is an upper bound of the set of all numbers of the form f of si into delta alpha I running from 1 to n for all si varying over the ith subinterval xi minus 1 xi. So for all these numbers, it is an upper bound. So therefore, so their supremum, so supremum of that set will be least upper bound. So least upper bound will be less than or equal to any other upper bound. So it will be less than or equal to any other upper bound. Okay, now the question is, what is the supremum of this set? Okay, now what is the supremum? Supremum of the set of all sums f of si into delta alpha I running from 1 to n as si varies over xi minus 1 xi. So what that means is, for every point si in this closed interval, so form this sum and put it in this set. So it is a set of all sums of this form where si varies over the ith subinterval xi minus 1 xi, and we have considered supremum of this set. So, or in simple words, I can write it as supremum of the terms f of si delta alpha I running from 1 to n, where si is varying over xi minus 1 xi, right? Okay, now just we shall expand the summation, right? So summation means it is I running from 1 to n. So f of s1 delta alpha 1 plus f of s2 delta alpha 2 plus so on f of sn delta alpha n, where for every I, si is varying over the closed interval xi minus 1 xi, right? So here that is S1 varies over the closed interval x0 x1, S2 varies over x1 x2, like this, Sn varies over xn minus 1 xn. So for each I, so Sn varies over these points, so these terms will vary. So here each of these terms are varying, right? So for every I, take si from this interval, so form this sum, and supremum of this sum we have taken, right? That is, choose s1 from this interval, take f of s1 delta alpha 1, choose s2 from this interval, f of s2 delta alpha 2, like this, right? So we know that supremum of a plus b is supremum of a plus supremum of b. So just try to prove this. It is very simple. So for any two bounded sets A and B, so if A and B are bounded sets, then supremum of A plus B is equal to supremum of A plus supremum of B. So now here each term is actually a set of numbers. So f of s1 delta alpha 1, here s1 is varying over x0 x1 and second term. So it is also varying actually, right? So f of s2 delta alpha 2, it is varying as s2 varies over x1 x2, like this. So these numbers are varying, these numbers are varying, these numbers are varying. So just for example, so take this set as A1, take this set as A2, so on AN. So it is of the form supremum of A1 plus A2 plus so on AN. So it will be supremum of A1 plus supremum of A2 plus so on, right? So just I'll use it. So using it, so I can write that as so I can write this as supremum of f of S1 delta alpha 1 as S1 varies over x0 x1 plus supremum of the set of all second terms f of S2 delta alpha 2 as S2 varies over the second subinterval x1 x2. So like this, supremum of f of Sn delta alpha n as Sn varies over xn minus 1 xn. So here just I am using the identity supremum of A plus B is supremum of A plus supremum of B. So this can be written as in the summation form, summation of supremum of f of Si delta alpha I as Si varies over the ith subinterval xi minus 1 xi running from 1 to n. So which is equal to, okay, observe that for every fixed I, so if I fix I, so supremum of f of Si delta alpha I, so Si varies over the ith subinterval. So for every fixed I, delta alpha I is a non-negative real number. So we can take it outside without affecting the supremum. So delta alpha I, or I'll write it at the end, supremum of f of Si as Si varies over the closed interval xi minus 1 xi into delta alpha I running from 1 to n. So what is supremum of f of Si as Si varies over the closed interval xi minus 1 xi? So we have taken it as mi into delta alpha. Right? And what is it? It will be the upper Riemann-Stieltjes sum of F. So that means supremum of this set is nothing but UPF alpha. So therefore, in this inequality, in place of this, I have to put UPF alpha. So therefore we got UPF alpha is less than or equal to UPF dash F alpha dash plus M epsilon. So call it as what we can call. So last equation was 4. So we can call it as 5. Call it as equation 5. So we got this by taking one of the case of 4. So that is this term is less than M epsilon. Now take that this term is greater than minus M epsilon. Right? So now we shall repeat the same thing using the other term of the equation 4. Right? So again by 4 we have so summation f of Si into delta alpha I running from 1 to n minus summation f of Si into alpha dash of Si delta xi I running from 1 to n. So now this is greater than minus epsilon. So what shall we do is we shall take this negative term to the left hand side minus epsilon to this side. So which implies summation f of Si alpha dash of Si delta xi I running from 1 to n is less than summation f of Si delta alpha I running from 1 to n plus m epsilon. Okay, so where Si is varying over the ith subinterval xi minus 1 xi. But for all these f of Si values, there is a maximum or supremum. What is that supremum? So supremum of all f of x as x varies over the subinterval xi minus 1 xi. So what is it called? It is called mi. So all these numbers f of si's are less than or equal to mi. So into delta alpha as it is plus m epsilon. So now what is this? It is nothing but UPF alpha plus m epsilon. Right? So that is, we proved that summation f of si into the alpha dash of si, or you can write it as f into alpha dash of si I running from 1 to n delta xi is made strictly less than UPF alpha plus m epsilon, where si is varying over xi minus 1 xi. So as si varies over this interval, all these numbers are always less than this number. So you can call it as an upper bound for this. That is UPF alpha is an upper bound. Sorry. UPF alpha plus m epsilon is an upper bound for the set of all the numbers summation f into alpha dash of si into delta xi as si varies over xi minus 1 xi. Right? So it is an upper bound. So supremum of this set will be least upper bound, so which will be less than or equal to any other upper bound. So therefore, supremum of this set f into alpha dash of si delta xi I running from 1 to n as si varies over the closed interval xi minus 1 xi. So supremum will be less than or equal to any other upper bound. But what is the supremum? So note that as we done in the earlier case, in the same way, note that supremum of the set of all f into alpha dash of si delta xi by running from 1 to n as si varies over the subinterval xi minus 1 xi. So the supremum is nothing but upper Riemann sum of the function f into alpha dash. As we have delta xi here, it will be Riemann sum, and supremum is there, so it is upper Riemann sum. So upper Riemann sum of f into alpha dash. So just note this. So we can prove as we done in the previous case. So therefore, so UPF alpha dash is less than or equal to UPF alpha plus m epsilon. So call this as some equation 6. Right? Equation 6. Now consider 5. Now by 5 we have, what is 5? It is UPF alpha is less than or equal to UP alpha dash m epsilon, where P is any refinement of the partition P star of the closed interval a comma b. right? So this inequality holds for any refinement P of P star. So now what we will do is put all the refinements of P star in a set. So let script B, P be the class of all refinements of the partition P star of closed interval A comma B, right? Then so we have UPF alpha is less than or equal to UPF alpha dash plus M epsilon, right? Now UPF alpha, here P is any refinement of partition P star. So now consider infimum of all such numbers as P varies over the P. P is the class of all refinements of P star. So that means just I am taking infimum of all such numbers. So infimum will be greatest lower bound. So infimum will be less than or equal to these numbers. So that is infimum of UPF alpha as P varies over all refinements of P star is less than or equal to UPF alpha dash plus M epsilon, right? Where P is any refinement of P star, right? Here also same thing, where P is any refinement of P star. Okay, now this is also a fixed number. This is also a fixed number. So take it to the left side. So what we have now, infimum of all UPF alpha as P varies over the refinements of P star minus M epsilon is less than or equal to UPF alpha dash, where P is any refinement of P star, right? Okay, so now observe that as P varies over the refinements of P star, so this number is always greater than or equal to this number. So what it means, so this term is a lower bound for all these numbers. So note that infimum of UPF alpha as P varies over the partitions, refinements of P star minus M epsilon is a lower bound for the set of all numbers UPF alpha dash as P varies over the refinements of P star. So as it is a lower bound, it will be always less than or equal to the greatest lower bound, that is infimum. That is infimum of UPF alpha minus M epsilon. So as it is a lower bound, it will be less than or equal to the greatest lower bound of these numbers. Right? So take minus M epsilon to the left and take this infimum to the right. So, or can write this as infimum of UPF alpha minus infimum of UPF alpha dash is made less than M epsilon. Right? So call this as equation 7. Now by 6, what we have? So do the same thing with equation 6. Similarly, by 6, what we have? UPF F alpha dash is less than or equal to U P F alpha plus M epsilon. So what it implies? It implies, so the same thing once again. So this number is greater than or equal to the infimum of all such numbers as P varies over the refinements of P star. Less than or equal to U P F alpha dash less than or equal to U P F alpha plus M epsilon. So take M epsilon to the left. So infimum of U P F alpha dash P varies over the refinements of P star minus M epsilon is less than or equal to U P F alpha, where P is any refinement of P star. So now observe that as P varies over all refinements of P star, so these numbers are always greater than or equal to this number. So that means this will be a lower bound, and hence any lower bound is always less than or equal to the greatest lower bound. Right? So what it implies? Infimum of U P F alpha dash minus, okay, I will rewrite this. Okay. So I'll take this infimum to the left side. So U P F alpha minus infimum of U P F alpha dash can be made greater than or equal to minus epsilon, I think. Okay. So call this as equation 8. Now combine equation 7 and equation 8. So what it shows from equation 7 and 8, we observe that infimum of UPF alpha minus infimum of UPF alpha dash. So by 7, this difference is less than or equal to M epsilon. By 8, this difference is greater than or equal to M epsilon. So it is less than or equal to M epsilon and greater than or equal to minus M epsilon. So note that, so infimum of UPF alpha as P varies over the refinements of P star is nothing but infimum of UPF alpha as P varies over capital P. Similarly, infimum of UP alpha dash P varies over refinements of P star is equal to infimum of UPF alpha dash as P varies over capital P, where capital P is the class of all partitions of closed interval A, B. So now observe that here script P, so it is just varying over, so it just contains refinements of P star. So that means it contains some partitions of closed interval A, B. Capital P contains all partitions of closed interval A, B. So script P contains only refinements of P star, that is only these partitions, but capital P contains all the partitions. But also we are observing that these two infimums are one and the same. So just I'll illustrate it. So I'll illustrate one of these two, the other follows as it is. So to show infimum of UPF alpha as P varies over the refinements of P star is equal to infimum of UPF alpha as P varies over all the partitions of P. Now, since first of all, P is contained in P. So script P contains some special type of partitions which are refinements of P star, but capital P contains all the partitions of P star. So as P is contained in capital P, so infimum of UPF alpha as P varies of script T is greater than or equal to infimum of UPF alpha as P varies over capital P. So this is because since A is contained in B implies infimum of A is greater than or equal to infimum of B. So note this point. So as this set is contained in this set, infimum taken over the points of this set is greater than or equal to infimum taken over the elements of this set. So this number is greater than or equal to this number. To prove the equality, we have to prove this number is greater than or equal to this number. Right? So for that, consider any P of P. On the other hand, for any element Q of capital P, Q is a element of capital P means P is what? Capital P is a set of all partitions of closed interval A comma B. So Q is a partition of closed interval A comma B. Right? So now let call some P1 as Q union P star. Then P1 is a common refinement of Q and P star. Right? So P1 is a refinement of Q and refinement of P star. So first of all, as P1 is a refinement of Q, we observe that U P1 F alpha is less than or equal to U Q F alpha. So this is because P1 is a refinement of Q. And also P1 is a refinement of P star. So if I consider infimum of all UPF alpha as P varies over the refinements of P star, so P1 will be one among this. So it will be greater than or equal to infimum. So that is what we got. Infimum of UPF alpha as P varies over the refinements of P star is always less than or equal to UQF alpha, where Q is what? For any element Q of P. So what that means? So this number is a lower bound for all the numbers UQF alpha as Q varies over P. So this is a lower bound. So hence it will be less than or equal to the infimum of those numbers. So therefore, infimum of UPF alpha as P varies over the refinements of P star will be less than or equal to infimum of UPF alpha as P varies over all the partitions of. So this is a lower bound. It will be less than or equal to the greatest lower bound. So now by these two inequalities, so this is 1, this is 2. So by 1 and 2, what we have? Infimum of UPF alpha as P varies over the refinement of P star is equal to infimum of UPF alpha as p varies over all the partitions of closed interval economy. So these two infimums are one and the same. So in a similar way, we can prove that infimum of UP F alpha dash as p varies over the refinements of p star is equal to infimum of UP F alpha as p varies over all the partitions of A community. So these two infimums are one and the same. So what we have noted here holds good, right? So in place of these two infimums, I can replace these two infimums. So call this as equation 9. So therefore, by 9, what we get? Infimum of all UPF alpha as p varies over all the partitions of closed interval A comma B minus infimum of UPF alpha dash as p varies over all the partitions of closed interval A comma B lies in between minus epsilon and plus epsilon. So what is infimum of all upper Riemann-Stieltjes sums? It is the upper Riemann-Stieltjes integral of f with respect to monotonical increasing function alpha. And here, so it is upper Riemann sum of f into alpha dash. So it is the upper Riemann integral of f into alpha dash. So f into alpha dash. Right. So this lies in between minus epsilon and plus epsilon. Or I can write their modulus value is less than or equal to m epsilon. Since epsilon greater than 0 is arbitrary, we conclude that so observe that this difference is greater than or equal to 0. As it is a modulus value, it is always greater than or equal to 0, and it can be made less than or equal to m into epsilon, where epsilon is arbitrary. So you can choose any a positive epsilon value. So by choosing smaller and smaller value of epsilon, you can observe that this modulus can be made less than m into epsilon. That means this difference is non-negative and it can be made less than any negligible positive value. So that the only possibility is this difference has to be equal to 0. So this modulus value equal to 0. It cannot be positive. So as it is less than or equal to every positive value, this modulus value is equal to 0. That is the modulus of this one has to be equal to 0. Right? Or equivalently, the modulus value is 0 means the value is equal to 0, or it is the upper Riemann-Stieltjes integral of f is equal to the upper Riemann integral of f into alpha dash of x. Right? So we proved the corresponding upper integrals are equal. In a similar way, we can prove that their corresponding lower integrals are also equal. So wherever we have chosen the upper Riemann-Stieltjes sums, choose the lower Riemann-Stieltjes sums, and wherever we have chosen upper Riemann sum, choose lower Riemann-Stieltjes sum. So wherever you have UPF alpha dash, choose LPF alpha, LP dash, PF alpha dash. So repeating the procedure for lower sums, we get lower Riemann-Stieltjes integral of f is equal to the lower Riemann integral of f alpha dash of x. Okay. So now, which equation is this? Up to 9, right? So this is 10 and this is 11. So by 10 and 11, by 10 and 11, we observe that so what we observe, so 10 and 11. So if at all f is Riemann-Stieley integrable on the closed interval a comma b, right? So then what happens? The lower Riemann-Stieley integral of f is equal to the upper Riemann-Stieley integral of f, right? This is what we have. So if I assume f is Riemann-Stieley integrable on this, so then I'll have this. Now use 10 and 11. So LHS and LHS of these two equations are equal means RHS of these two equations also should imply equal. That is lower Riemann-Stieley Riemann integral of f into alpha dash of x dx is equal to the upper Riemann integral of f into alpha dash of x. So by 10 and 11. So these two lower and upper integrals are equal means implies f into alpha dash is Riemann integrable on closed interval a comma b. Now converse, assume that f into alpha dash is Riemann integrable. Then these two integrals are same. So which are the right hand side of these two equations? As the right hand sides are equal, left hand sides are equal. So that means these two integrals will be equal. So that f will be Riemann-Stieley integrable. So we got this one. So here we have this one. So f is Riemann-Stieley integrable on closed interval a comma b if and only if f into alpha dash is Riemann integrable on closed interval a comma b. And in this case, so the common value is taken as the Riemann-Stieley integral of f. So this can be replaced by Riemann-Stieley integral of f, and this can be replaced by Riemann integral of f into alpha dash. So also or further in this case, by 10 and 11, we observe that the Riemann-Stieley integral of f is equal to the Riemann integral of f into alpha dash of x, which completes the proof. So thus, in this theorem, we proved that f is Riemann-Stieley integrable if and only if f into alpha dash is Riemann integrable. So it is a very important result